So we're all here together to achieve our mission to what is on the screen. I just said it out loud. I don't need to say it again. But the whole point is that this is lofty, and we need all of us to be together to figure out what that looks like. But the purpose of today's gathering is really just for us to gather and really have an opportunity to dream. So this is not a meeting. We don't have a whole lot of big agenda, although we'll be quite well facilitated to get connected to each other so we can get closer to the mission. And one thing that, since everything we do is about action that allows us to create change, it's really about how are we coming together over the past 5 years to practice what shaping our energy future really looks like. And with this opportunity, I would love to bring in the Battery Collective to share as an example of what shaping our energy future looks like. We have Kansas and Yasir in the room. If you all can just take a moment, since I don't need to be hogging up the space, to just say a few words about the Battery Collective and what it's about, in case folks don't already know it.
Sure. So, I mean, I'll start this time. The Battery Collective Battery Collective started out of the need from the when people realized from when the fires were going on, there were a lot of power outages. And actually, I don't know about here, but on our side of the bay, and I'm so sure over here, we had power outages. So just literally last night. Yeah. So it's a constant reminder of the opportunities, if you want to view them as opportunities, to realize where we can come together and solve problems that people are encountering literally daily. But it's also more than that. It's also about understanding how to build those relationships and learn to experience those types of ownership together, right? It's a big, something that we don't get a lot today is to actually listen and collectively govern different aspects of our society. And we found that the Battery Collective was just such a great place to start because people had a real need of their power being out. Power is such a crucial thing in order to understand where it's coming from, what it does for us, and how it is us. And so we found it as a good catalyst to help try to bring a synthesis of all of those things together where people can try to experiment with what it would be like to be in a group and grow together, learn together, and experience life together.
Right, and because it's so local, if we are not living close by, what do we do?
You can check out the toolkit. So yeah, we actually did. Sorry, we did we actually collabed with this group, and we did a whole bunch of educational series, but a collaborative series where we talked about our experience in the Battery Collective. And so it's a whole bunch of recordings, sessions that we laid out that people asked questions. We covered different topics from how to organize to the technologies of the batteries themselves to a whole bunch of other topics. And it also provides a connection to a whole bunch of other people from around the country. So I think there was actually people from around the world that participated in it, a majority from the United States. But it was really cool to hear all of the different problems from different parts of the country and all of the very specific, constraints and community relations that are going on in their community. So coming from a wide variety of people that are either community leaders already to just people that want to be more active in their community. And so it was a really fun educational series. And yeah, and the people that were running it documented it. They typed up, quick notes on it and added some animations and things. So yeah, definitely check that out.
And only you can speak on whether it's fun or not, and you can see it for yourself by scanning the QR code yourself and check out. It could be welcome, Igor. Grab a seat, sit down. There's some food. There's some drinks over there. Yeah, scan it and feel free to share it with your friends and family, especially those who do not live in the East Bay area who can easily share the batteries.
I have a question. So how many batteries are out there now, as a collective, and did you use them yesterday? Last night?
We have 3 batteries, or I think maybe 4. Yeah,
One
actually.
is right there.
Oh, there you go. And actually, I was because so I'm actually in San Francisco, and most of the outages actually happen over here. And this is actually a great learning and thing about practicing this, like, right? You learn about these situations, and actually, yeah. So I didn't get a battery last night because it would have taken too much especially during the storm, logistical work to get the battery from over here to there. But it was, for me, it was actually inspiring. That my first thought was when my friend reached out to me that his power was out. It's like, oh my goodness! Like, if it was in my local neighborhood, I would reach out. But like again, I knew it was in most of the batteries on this side of the bay. So, but that's a great question.
Yeah, and in order for us to make sure the battery gets used as actively as possible, we want folks to be sharing, to have these, we've got these magnets printed out. If you cannot recognize who this is, this person is actually online right now. I can move it so for folks to see who this cartoon is of. Hi, Yvette. So we got these magnets made. If you're local and you could use the batteries for your community, we'd love for you to put it on your fridge. If you can want to spread the words, we'd love for you to give it out for people you know on the fridge. And because this is a shared community asset, we're not just here giving out free batteries. We want to make sure we're all protecting our shared assets. So if you have not already, we have a battery collective member sheet right there where Greg and Savannah are sitting. If they can raise their hand, that's the table, and there should be a clipboard somewhere.
Oh, yeah,
It's right there. Okay. Things are moving around, but we have a battery collective membership form right there. Please sign up, and if you're not already a People Power member, or if you're not already signed up to be a battery collective members. Anyway, thank you, Kansas. Yes, would you like to say a few words in a way that people online can't hear because you're sitting so far away?
I didn't want to mess with the wires over there. You guys weren't here for our whole wire yet. Oh, you really have to sit down.
You don't, you can stand up.
It seemed like different. So we do need more members actually, for more people to get involved. So if anyone's interested, please sign up. We have coming soon the pop-up village in San Francisco. When does that start again? February?
In
March?
April, in
April.
springtime.
In springtime. So if you guys are interested in doing community work as well, we use that as an educational opportunity. So a lot of people in the community come, we have the batteries there, we demo the batteries, we built batteries for that actual event. The whole event is powered off of the batteries that we put together and share that information with the community. This is another resource here. So please, if you don't live locally, or even if you just want the information and want to learn how to build your own backup battery for your community or for yourself, please check out the link there and ask us if you guys have any questions.
Great, thank you. So what I'll be doing is I'll pass these magnets around. If this is an honor system to help us manage our batteries together. If you are a People Power member, please take one. If you have signed up to be a battery collective member, please take one. So there you go. Pass it around. And if you have not signed up, you're interested, take one, and please remember to fill out the clipboard so we can do this together, because we have us to do things together. I also recognize that they have stuff on chat. Oh, think so. Yay, we got Brandy online. Also echoing the pop-up. March is Pop-Up Resource Village. I was wrong, it's March, not April. It's the second Saturday in San Francisco, supporting Black birthing bodies.
Beautiful.
All right, so now that was one example of how we are shaping our energy future. Obviously, it's very small. We're just moving some batteries, helping each other out during the power outage. But it's a way for us to start thinking about energy, being more conscious, understanding how much energy actually takes to move things around, to live our lives so that we can be more conscious in designing what the future looks like. So now what we're gonna do is actually a little bit of activity. But this is where the facilitated stuff happens, pretty much the end of the presentation, like piece. We're gonna take a deep breath. together as we're constantly moving together and interconnected and just remembering our breath is what connects us all. Healthy breath, that is, of course. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna do a little World Cafe activity. We talk a lot, I talk a lot about sharing our energy future. We exist to enable everyone to own and shape our energy future, but what does that even mean? So what we're gonna do today is gonna do a little World Cafe style activity. I hope folks are mostly done with eating. If not, no worries. I see most places are down, which is great. So what we're gonna do is we're going to have, this activities people online can also participate in. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have 3 tables. Each table will have each table will have 15 minutes to work on these 3 questions. For table number 1, we'll try to come together. Actually, before I get there, what we're going to, actually, no, let's do this. Table number 1 will come together and try to figure out, in this energy future, in my ideal world, in this energy future, who will be building the energy system, energy infrastructure, and how is that going to be built? I have some assumptions, but once I get onto the paper, I realize, oh wait, there's a lot of assumptions that are not realistic. So this is an opportunity for you to talk to fellow People Power community members to understand what does that look like, what you're thinking. We have 15 minutes to talk about that. That's table number 1. And I'm supposed to drop this in chat. So folks online can also take a look at the Jamboard. Table number 2 will go, who pays for it? Who's gonna be paying for the energy system? And of course you can say, my ideal world doesn't have money. That's fine. We can let go of money, but who's going to be gathering the resource to build these energy system? How is that going to be gathered? This is a little different from the physics of building it. How is it going to be, the resource is gonna be gathered? You can think, how are we gonna pay for it? Who's gonna pay for it? That's table number 2. Table number 3, who is gonna own it? Who's gonna hold it? These are questions I can say, people's gonna own it, but like, what does it even look like? What does it look like when people own it? And also, what scale does that look like? Is it just like my family owns it? Like my solar, like $40,000 solar panels and battery because I'm rich and I can afford it? Or is it like my community? What does that actually look at? And how big is it? And what is the role of the government in that future? We're not trying to reach a consensus. We're going to have a space in each of these tables to have a conversation about some ideas. So the way we're going to do this is 15 minutes each on one table. I will let you know when the time is almost up, and the time is up. And then table 1 is going to move to table 2. Table 2 is going to move to table 3. Table 3 is going to move to table 1. I'll repeat all this later. We'll do 15 minutes and then swap again. So then all of us will have an idea of some ideas of what they look like. Rough idea, folks can get on the Jamboard. If you're online, you could get into the activity. I realize I don't have it open and share for everyone. So the way we're gonna do this is count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if y'all can help me with
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2. 3. Then you're 1.
2, 3.
1.
2, 3.
1. 2.
3.
fantastic. All right, so for those who are 1, do we have a table for 1? Yes, here?
Yeah, right here.
Okay, so for those who are 1, please go to the beige color table where Yasir is currently sitting or standing, and then I'm gonna change the permission online, so now you can refresh and you all should have access to it now. My apologies for that. And then for those who are table number 2, please go to the black table where Yasir is holding 2. And then for those who are 3, you can just stay here. And I'm gonna put ourselves on mute here because we could be really noisy, so you all can talk to each other. How does that sound? I'm talking to folks online. I don't know if is the volume loud enough?
Crystal, are we taking all 3 questions or are we picking one?
Sorry, say that again, Lisa. Say that again, Lisa.
Well, what, are we doing a table or are we just doing all three questions?
So you guys are one table and you could go work on all three questions together.
Okay.
Yeah, so about 15 minutes each, and then we can come together with a big conversation. Thank you all.
Hello?
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Hi.
I have to apologize because I had told Crystal that I have to leave at 7, so I have to drop off in about 10 minutes, unfortunately. But it's nice to meet you all.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Oh, Yvette, you're on mute.
Very cool. Yay, here I am.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is awesome. And then kudos to Crystal for managing all of our attendances, virtual and in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna follow the leader. What are we doing? Oh,
Well, I'm
hello.
Oh,
in here.
Adriana, you're on mute. Yeah.
Oh. Do we want to go one question at a time from top to bottom? 1, 2, 3? All together?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I think that's good.
all right. Y'all want to just use the Jamboard in silence, or want to have a discussion about it, or everybody can
I would love to
participate in
have
the
a
Jamboard?
discussion about it.
Okay.
Can we have a discussion while we're doing it?
Absolutely.
And I'm a complete novice, so I'm here to learn from all of you. I don't know really anything about this topic.
Okay. So, the questions are, our energy system in an ideal world, who builds it, who pays for it, and who owns or holds it? And perhaps what is the role of the state? So, I don't know. I'm gonna just say that for me, I feel like we build it with the support of the state, and we hold it and we own it.
Who is we?
The end.
Who is
We being the people, like a group of people, like people's power, like we build it, and the state gives us money to do that. And then we are in charge of the distribution and the maintenance of the system. But we have funding from the state because we pay taxes. Mm-hmm.
So where are people getting this? I mean, where are so I'm assuming we need skills to build it. So the question of how it gets built. What are the skills needed to build a
Here's a Jamboard.
energy system? Or the insights or the movements?
Well, is it solarly built? Is it a solar system?
I think that it's a collaborative, cooperative. I believe that the who are all of us. When I hear the state and then us, I'm like, well, we're part of the state too. So I'm going to
That's what I'm saying.
the idea of the who's are all of us, all the humans on the planet that are using energy are collaboratively working together to be in a right relationship with Mama Earth. And so the who's are all of us in my mind. um, folks who are doing traditional energy, mining, coal,
Mm.
and those of us who are thinking about other ways that are more generative for the planet.
Mhm.
The question is, how do we collaborate? Is my question. I don't have that answer. I'm just asking that. But if we were to say the who's to build it, it's us.
Mhm.
Superman ain't coming from Mars.
This makes me think of kind of a first question I'm thinking is like, well, what does it look like? And I'm thinking of things like very local energy, like the battery cooperatives or like microgrids, that in a very, very local place, local way, that the collaborative building together. But then also the different levels of scale where there might be larger systems, that the local systems somehow like connect with larger scale systems. So I'm just, I'm curious about that, what that looks like. And I see like a lot of collaboration on a local scale, but then somehow participation on the larger levels of scale. And also something, I think, Brandy, that's you, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Hi there.
Hey.
Hi. We met a long time ago, a few years ago. Well, you mentioned, coal and et cetera. So it also makes me think of like, well, what are our energy needs?
Mhm.
How are we like relating to energy differently and maybe, needing less energy so that we're not having to go to these really extractive models, but like, how do we build our systems of life ways also
Mhm.
that are more regenerative and joyful? So that feels important to me, like building a place to come together in community that's meaningful locally is as important as, some of the systems that, maybe we don't need to, buy so much or travel so much if we have really abundant investment locally.
I'm also curious, because I'm very much a local attuned person. I believe that's how Mama Nature works in guilds. And so I mimic her often in my every design. And I often think though that we're not thinking about our whole region and our state and the fact that the water in San Francisco is a 107-mile aqueduct coming from another part of California, water, air, energy. And so there's a dissonance often in my mind. And I am a Bay Arean, y'all, fourth generation. But there's a bubble of that we've created that I think we need to think about our watershed in connection to this process and absolute like local attunement in each regional space. We are number one producers of agriculture and just so many things that we would be remiss in my mind to over hyper, like the Bay Area, like, okay, so the whole California going to come there and that's going to solve our energy. I think I'm curious on what do the guilds look like along the shed for each ecosystem to have it. I think I shared, Crystal and I were just in Washington, D.C., and the conversation of what is our rural urban design? How are we thinking about energy in that? Because they feed each other, and we're being very, in my mind, in the same vein of either or if we don't think of and.
Well, is there some sort of a skills training program or a small business incentive to become installers of what it is we're talking about? And if there isn't, I mean, I don't know if there is, but if there isn't, is that kind of like one brick in the campaign?
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea, Yvette, I believe. I definitely know that'll be needed. I'm also curious of what asset-based mapping that we may be, like what's around, what's existing in different and how do we build upon it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That would be fresh. That would be fresh.
I'm really curious
Adriana,
about, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, Adriana, I'm curious what's in your brain.
I keep thinking about what Brandy said initially about like we all have a role to play. You know, the question of who is the we, it's all of us. And I was thinking about food was the first thing that came to mind when I think about energy systems, just like really elemental, like not even infrastructure like panels or whatnot, but just thinking about soil, building soil. And yeah, thinking about, seawalls, like that infrastructure, like on a really elemental level.
Mhm.
And how, yeah, it's like these layers, like was talked about. I think Lisa was talking about that, just like the different levels and layers and dimensions, and how can we be like nested and interconnected. And like I struggle with thinking about, yeah, how can the state, like who facilitates that? It's one thing who resources it, like with dollars, if you will, and then who facilitates that process, of just navigating the systems of accessing the resources and distributing the resources, and that's equal and fair, based on the place's needs. Yeah, and who the same questions, who's accountable to what and to whom, and how do we, if somebody is cheating or being greedy or slipping, like how do we check that, like boom, just in terms of tracking and monitoring, making sure everything gets served, the waterways. It doesn't become extractive. The system and the process, remains regenerative. Something that scares me is public-private partnerships. Like I'm always like, oh my God, when thinking about the big we, in the state, and then again, who's facilitating the resource sharing, and the distribution.
Yeah. And we can't like we're all in this together, so to speak. Like we're all on this planet and using this earth. We turn on the faucet. I hear what you're saying, Adriana, around public-private partnership. Yeah, it's one of the things that I think the how, if I were to move out, like I'm clear that I think that the who's are all of us. And I think, let's say, a special attention to folks who are most going to be impacted by what's happening on the planet. So I'll add a star, but I don't want to other the others that we are not on board just yet, because they're just a part of this. And I think the how is similar to, like at the pop-up, rapid education, creating guilds of humans throughout that are somewhat of the redwoods, building the soil, or the mycelium folks. Because see, like the whole ecosystem is needed to do this of humans. So it's like we got to build the soil. Maybe folks who don't, I'll say the soil, which we know if you build the soil, you can grow anything. So I would say the soil are those most impacted. So how are we really building their skill set and tool? While thinking about, let's say the redwoods would be folks who are already established and have this thing and, are running on state things, but knowing that it's connected, we're just connected.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of education. At the pop-up, what was amazing is that Crystal and Yasir came for maybe about 3 or 4 pop-ups. And then we were unable to come. The community built the battery themselves. They got directions. Now the pop-up is doing it. So it's like that actually can just happen, right? So it's almost set it and forget it. So it's like a proof of a concept
Mhm.
Now, how rapidly can we do that with several other guilds or groups or resource villages or hubs that are already existing? Where we can look out on the map and say from Oakland to Orville, we have batteries operating.
Mhm.
And just as a beginning stage of this thing, because I'm gonna say that's not the whole thing, right? There's some layers in my mind.
Hmm.
that
Is that
be-
for one question or all questions, Crystal? Okay.
Mhm.
So the who builds it is all of us, and how? Nested, weaving. Yes, it's the communication too. It's like how are we coordinated so that it's, you know, interconnected, interwoven.
Mhm.
Not repeating what other people are doing if that's not needed.
Mhm.
How do y'all feel about conservation? Like how does that word make you feel? I'm always hesitant to use it just in terms of, you know, I'm just curious what people. I know that's a big question, but
Conservation of energy,
what's that?
like conservation of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, conservation of, I mean, I'm just thinking about resources and like sharing and fair in those words, and sometimes conservation comes up in those conversations for me, and I'm always like, ooh, I don't know if conservation has a negative connotation for me or not. Yeah.
Right, kind of right there in the middle, right? I mean, yes, and because there's got to be some, okay, if it's being conserved, then it's being stockpiled somewhere, or it's being, you know, built up somewhere, and then there's a distribution issue, and then the issue of distribution is under whose control?
That's a great question. And the issue of waste is under whose control too. I know that's another topic, but related.
Yeah,
of
but it's
course.
exactly, it's absolutely connected and related.
Well,
Yeah, the
when you
circle.
first said the word conserve, I won't lie, I had a moment of some of the unfortunate designs of our society where folks have conserved our land for the ecosystem, but really out of fear of others. And then also as a plant cester that I am, I have a feeling of like, yeah, humans, we actually got to conserve some things, because if not, y'all just gonna keep on building on shit. So we're just, because you know, we got to have more stuff. So there's this piece of the and, like you said, Yvette, of, yeah, we actually got to think about that as it pertains to our usage. We've gotten so in the overusage. Where's the balance? Is my curiosity. And yeah, I think it's all of the rules around the conservation.
I really appreciate you for bringing that up, though, Adriana, for sure, because it's part and parcel of the whole pie, right? And yeah.
And then the maintenance, you know what I mean? Like it's building it, and then it's like, okay, you build it, and then what? Like there's the maintenance piece. Yeah, there's a lot of work for us all.
Maintenance, upgrade, staying current with technology, staying current with, you know, the most best practices or the highest usage technologies.
Yeah.
They're introducing new stuff all the time. I mean, I'm just gonna, this just is coming up for me in my brain right now based on the conversation we're having, just a little anecdote, if you will. After the Loma Prieta earthquake, I lived in San Francisco, and I lived in the Upper Haight, and the community, the neighbors all came together and were really all very positive and excited, and everything was great. And they were like, okay, so we're gonna create a storage place for the neighborhood so that we all have our resources and we know where to go in an emergency. Awesome idea. And then everyone talking about what can we put in the storage and what needs to be in there and everything. And then the one person said, okay, and how will we secure this stuff? And then it became, okay, well, who's going to have a key to the lock? Who's going to have the combination? And then it became, how do we keep other people out? And then I was like, okay, yeah, I'm done. You know what I mean? And I hear what you're saying, and that's what I want. That's what I want to avoid.
But if I'm just imagining what happens when everyone has their, like this group, it has this storage. This group, like, how do we build so that we don't have to keep anyone out? Everybody has theirs to keep, has their
This
space.
is what I'm saying. I know
Yeah.
that we can't do that. I wanted to just raise that little anecdote.
No, I feel it. No, that's
to
what
put
happened.
that into the mix.
Yeah. Sorry, in our ideal energy system.
Like, wouldn't it be cool if like they were all interconnected so that if one got drained down and there was excess in another, it would just, flow like that.
Definitely idealistic.
Makes me think of just building on this, how, in an ideal energy system, it would be really good if like everybody has their basic energy needs met. And then to the issue of conservation, a lot of things like price-based mechanisms to prevent overuse don't really work if people have more than they need. And I'm thinking about, there's this idea related to flying called a flight levy, which actually increases the price of airplane flights if you fly a lot. And because otherwise, someone who just, if prices are the same for everybody, then you just fly all over the place. It doesn't really matter. But if like by the time you're on your 20th flight, the price is like astronomical. So it's kind of like a way of balancing a little bit that issue of conservation.
Wow.
According to like your needs. So everyone has their basic needs, but if you have way more, it's also not like just, just pay for more. It's like there actually is some way of limiting or just encouraging like more fairness in the system. I mean, that's just one mechanism or one idea of like who pays, but it's just one thought too. And I think just to your point about the storage, if everybody has their needs met, then there's much less need to like, support and protect and fortress around resources.
And police and stuff.
And police,
Exactly. And I like that flight levy analogy because most of those types of tariffs are based on demand and based on like, a time frame of demand. Whereas what you're talking about, at least as far as I understand it, is more based on your ability to use and overuse. So it's taxing potential overuse as opposed to making it like, oh, well, everybody wants it between 4 and 9. So it's going to be more expensive for everybody between 4 and 9. But really, that's just not a fair application of the mechanism. Whereas I feel like what you're talking about is a little more equitable.
Yeah, beautifully said.
That's really cool thinking about that that levy, because always my brother's always talking about his frequent flyer miles, like he racking up all these miles, and I'm like, boy, shut up, you know what I mean? But I feel like that's a really good, just way to turn it on its head and really get people to thinking about, how much all the externalities, that they need to be paying for.
Yeah. that could translate across a lot of different systems.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mhm.
still conversation when we talk about the pay, because humans, we just consume so much. We're such an organism that uses just a lot of resources compared to all the other organisms on the planet, right? Like gestation is 10 months. We live up to 100 years, unlike a possum, right? It's like 3 months. They eat up stuff. You know what I mean? Like we just use it. And so for me, I think there's a lot of conversation too about like, how are we using it, y'all? Like there's a camp, I can't think of the name of it, where the kids, an energy camp, and you stay on the site and you're given this many gallons of water a day, this much power. And often by the 4th day, kids have run out of their water because there's still this latent mindset that we've all adapted, self included. I'm not othering my own self in it, of flicking on a light, having a TV run. So there's also, I think, in order to put these things into play, there has to be some real, like, personal coming to Jesus moments on how we are using energy.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. Well,
Otherwise,
that education piece is huge. That will never end. I'm guessing.
and I think it may be some
Mhm.
hard lessons, right? Like, I'm not even promoting that, but I wanted the example of during the pandemic. My daughter said to me, "Mom, you're popular." And people, the number of humans that reached out to me to grow food that probably I had begged for years to grow. Please, you have a big garden, girl. Please grow and I'll come and do it. The pandemic hit and the phone was, girl, come in this backyard. We need you to grow this food. Lord, please. And so it's unfortunate that, but sometimes it's that, ooh, and trust me, I didn't do no, I said, okay, you ready? Come on, let's go. But I think because the way we've gotten it, there has to be some almost simulations. Like, look, you've used this much, and honestly, you just can't. But it took that pandemic to go, wait, I do have this big old backyard. I can grow my collard greens. I don't want to stand in line and get that. Right. So there's some pieces in our education. So I'm also just curious on how we think about that. So that,
So
yeah.
question about that. So are you saying like thinking about surplus land? When you say how we use it, is that what you mean? Like, yes, instead of going to the store paying $3 for a bunch of collard greens, we can save money and grow them in the yard. They're prolific. But in terms of people with land that they're not using or that's underproductive per se, like you mean like they could potentially pay more? Or I know you didn't say that, but this is just what's coming into my head in terms of like how we use energy, how we build a system. And if we have all this surplus land that's actually maybe degraded or not being cared for, not that we tax people for not taking care of their land, but I'm just curious on what can be done, because I have a lot of empty raised beds right now where a lot of food can be growing. It's sort of like, how do we really encourage one another to manage our use well? Or how can we incentivize one another to manage our use, our land in better ways that builds the energy system?
You said a great thing. How do we incentivize? Right. And so it's like, do what do you get if is there a competition that you only use this many wattages this month, so you get a surplus versus your bill is less? Right now we're just, the bill is less, but there are more designed, like, look, you save this much energy and now a baby can eat, people can do this. Like, what are the incentives, right? Like, based on the fact my family reduced significantly our bill, how does that affect the whole? And not just the bills, these numbers, this money stuff we've created that just isn't gonna, at the end of the day, take care of us, huh? Like, we are the ones.
Right.
We are the ones, but I mean, okay, that's beautiful. But like, what about like right now practice? Like, I mean, I do understand that that can also be right now practice, but we're moving from talking about energy to talking about food, right? And are we, I mean, I know those two are interconnected, but they are not the same thing. And are we talking about an energy situation, or are we talking about a food situation?
I mean, it takes energy to cook certain foods, you know? It takes energy to boil water. I mean, fire or, you know, the electric stove or the electric kettle or what, all of that. So I
Right.
just feel like in terms of a teaching tool, food is something that we all you know, not only relate to, but have a so intimate connection to in terms of like learning and change, systems change.
Right.
But yeah,
But
I hear you.
I'm trying to figure out how to, like, especially in these days of, like, you know, PG&E going berserk with their rates and all that stuff, and the concept of being able to sell power back. I know that's changed to some degree since February or something like that, or this month, but recently. And the concept of generating energy to offset, like right now, offset these crazy PG&E bills. And I understand the educational aspect of what energy is in connection with food and all of that. But like when we talk about who's going to build it, how we're going to build it, who's, whatever those three questions were, I like, for me personally, I'll say I tried to get a solar system put on my house. And after I went through all the shucking and jiving and all the machinations, they said, oh, well, the lender is not going to approve your loan. So, okay, so now I feel trapped. Like I tried, and my house has been designated as one that can generate enough energy for our use plus, but I don't have the whatever it takes to get approved for a loan. And if there was a community oriented or a community sponsored energy source, I mean, we do kind of have one here in Berkeley, but it's kind of parallel to PG&E, really. But if we had a people powered solar scenario, that would be my option. I mean, I choose that option for my internet. I don't do what you call it, Sonic or whatever the others. I do LMI.net because they're local and they're my people, and I've done them forever. I would do the same for my energy. I would do the same for my water, you know, if I could. And I feel like what I'm interested in this whole shebang is the development of something like that.
Well, who's providing non-extractive loans? That's not gonna, you know what I mean? Like there are lenders who are doing, I mean, I don't know how it's connected to solar. But curious if anybody else knows about, you know, a potential financing resource.
For a solar system, right? And I'm using myself as an example, but I'm guessing that the majority of folks out there would do the same, you know, who don't have the, you know, 8.0 credit rating or whatever the heck else they require. Yeah.
I don't know of non-extractive lending, but according to some postcards I got from the Western Service Workers Association, PG&E made $22 billion in profit last year.
My point.
That could fund a lot of solar panels and system. So the rates that we are already paying could easily fund that if they were distributed. So that's just what, you know what I mean? Like just that system is very extractive. And if we just reinvested in community and power systems, that would be a lot of money right there.
Hoorah. I'm talking about that right there.
Right.
I love it. But I also am concerned that if we don't think about our food and use it, and we're just going to give money to keep being irresponsible to the planet, And that to me is like a topical solution to an infection that is requiring an antibiotic. And it's like, oh, take from them and just keep paying for us to keep overusing shit. And solar panels are not that. Also for me, just in this energy thing, it's like, actually, I don't know if that's the best of our ways. Like, you know, like, where's that coming from? Who are we extracting? It's like this whole clean energy thing is going to fuck up a whole nother community. We're going to kill a whole bunch of kids so that we could be over here with some clean energy. But then the other people are.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a either or. I think it's simultaneous, concurrent. Because I mean, how am I going to know the benefit of it if I never get to experience it? You feel me?
Oh no, I hear it. I'm just questioning the, like, you know, okay, they give folks to the people, but like, if we don't fix the real need of like, yo, in other countries, as the population increases, like America is a new country, it's a new thing. And in other countries, they've gotten things like, we could actually just like go to Thailand, for example, or other places where they're them. So I want to go back to, like Adriana said, the biggest issue, and the number of calls I got last night from community members who have blackouts, who were worried about, asking about the battery. Their number one concern was their food and the refrigerator. And for me, it was like, I wonder if we had, like, you know, my daughter, now I ain't even been to Thailand, but this comes through my daughter who travels often. And she said to me, you know, Mom, it's so neat. People don't have refrigerators. Everyone, there's street food and you eat out, like all the things are there, and then you go home and then that's it. There's not even refrigerators based on how the population, the food how things are happening are different. Therefore, the energy usage of that is different. So I guess I'm not saying either or either. I think it's but I think as much as we will give clean energy and to other communities, we also got to really audit our usage. We've got to think about like that's just like right at the same, like as you said, parallel. Otherwise, you're just giving people the okay to just keep being wasteful.
Exactly.
Brandy, I'm thinking about, you know, I met permaculture convergence. Sorry, Yvette, was I talking over you? You froze for a moment.
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Brandy, I met you at a permaculture convergence. And so I'm thinking of so much of what you're saying makes me think about the principles of like regenerative culture and how everything is intertwined, and and to me, a very compelling alternate way of thinking, which is not just let's get a renewable energy system to consume and continue extracting and consuming and overusing, but this way of thinking, like what leads to a more regenerative way of life, what leads to, you know, this way where we're not overusing and we continually think in this regenerative way, not just in terms of energy, but food and also, you know, community, what sustains us. So I'm just, you know, interested in that whole framework. And that's what I keep thinking of as you're speaking, Brandy. And it's, you know, I think in culture in the United States, as we see how fractured it can be, particularly with the real kind of stoking of resentment and entitlement, you know, particularly among, you know, kind of Republican Party and, you know, white people, maybe white men generally. But I also think that this is maybe a more compelling narrative. But anyway, this is just what it's bringing up for me.
I want to add something else. Thank you for that, Lisa. That was, yes. And I have this book on my desk that was given to me. Y'all may have seen it, called Drawdown.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, yes.
That's talking about the, you know, it kind of rates, you know, the most, what is it? Energy, most opportunities for change, kind of ranking them.
Yes.
Number one on the list of energy sucks. Just to link this conversation all together. Anybody want to guess what number one is?
Is it air conditioning or refrigeration?
Refrigeration.
I was going to say refrigeration.
Number one on the planet. All the scientists agree. It's in Drawdown. I worked in a grocery store, refrigeration, when it breaks down, the highest cost. When the shit goes down, the power goes out. Everybody's trying to find a deep freezer in the neighborhood in West Oakland to put the ice cream in because the ice cream is $9. You know what I mean? So I feel like the vulnerabilities of our food system and the dependence on refrigeration, like Brandy said too, like people was concerned about their food. The refrigerator is, the ice is starting to melt, my meat is getting warm, whatever, it gets real funny around the food and refrigeration. But I hear you at the same time, Yvette. And it's just kind of like not the lowest hanging fruit, but yeah, like simultaneously, like how do we prioritize what needs to, everything that is.
Everything. Well, I mean, yeah, to me, I think it's like if I could get out from underneath PG&E and not just like the bill, but the relationship.
The relationship.
That would be fresh. That would open my mind tremendously. And I can only imagine what that would do for others, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and then we begin to go, oh yeah, and look at this and look at that. And yeah. I think it's all of the above, everything we've all said. It's a really beautiful mezcla.
Mezcla. Who owns it or holds it?
Uh-huh. It's just weird the way we even designed that. I mean, the idea that
That question, you mean?
right? Like we own land. Like, how do we we own this? I mean, every time I even think of it and I work in the business of all of it, I go, gosh, humans are really deep. Like we have just gone so far from indigenous culture of we're grateful. We should just be grateful to be upon the land. How do we steward her wherever we're at? But like, the idea that we got deeds and, border lines and zoning and variances and all of those things that we know were created out of fear.
Yeah.
Period. There was no, tons of, we talk about how indigenous folks stewarded this land with no problem, no fires, they just were in such relationship. But once we began to put the ownership, the ego, then that's when we start going bad, right?
Yeah, the ownership, when we start going bad.
Adriana, the Greek chorus.
Yeah, I'm tired. I mean, I'm tired of it. Like I used to be challenged by it, but now I'm just tired of it. Somebody, I've been working in co-ops for so long with people in co-ops trying to do cooperation, calling each other owners of things. And I'm just like, what do you mean? Like I believe in healthy competition and all that, but the ownership piece, I feel like it's perpetuating what we are not wanting to, at least in the conversations that I've had. Like we're trying to do something else.
Right.
Don't call me that.
That's right.
I mean, yeah.
That's right.
I own my body. I don't even want to say I own my body. Like, can we find some other words? Like, it's too confusing. Like, what do you mean?
Right.
I mean, it's the better
steering.
word. Hold, tending. I like tending.
Tending.
I feel like I heard you say that, Brandy. Land
tending.
You said land tender one time, and I was like, ooh.
We're land tenders. We just had our California Farmer Justice Collaborative retreat, and we were really scrapped with that conversation of saying that our goal is to support land tenders and stewards and farmers. Like it wasn't, like like farming isn't it. That whole idea, that word of parting the land, creating rows versus tending her and gilding her and herb spiraling her. And we are that justice collaborative. And it was like, that's a lot, because a lot of our colleagues who are doing beginning farmer, we're like, we don't even want to, we want to say beginning tenders. Tenders is what we call it. The land.
No, that's beautiful.
Well, I think it's really awesome that just the pronoun choice, like talking about the land, not like it, but like her.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah.
Did you guys get me?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Give thanks for that. And that's what, and
Hey,
so
bueno.
until we begin
Hello.
those, we hear you.
Did you
but
get me?
yeah, you are frozen, but we hear you. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a big one, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
We've othered mother
Mm-hmm.
much.
Thank you.
We've othered the mother so much.
Mm.
Thank you, Yvette. You know, and yeah, her, like, that's why I say, no, we're land tenders. Like, we want to support land tenders and folks that are doing that, not folks who are subscribing to this same model that kills our soil.
Mm.
We just have to say no.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 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 I.
For the sake,
So
I can feel Crystal's energy. Who owns it?
Right.
I would go, well, we are the stewards of it. The people are, all the humans are taking ownership of the care of, the tending to it. It is a cooperative holdings.
What about who's accountable to whom or to what? What does that look like
Mm.
in that cooperative when people are freely tending and stewarding? I mean, in coordination, of course.
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm. I mean, I think we could, I think my initial response, I'm interested to hear what y'all say, but my initial response is that we all are accountable, and it needs to be maybe some sort of a rotating council or rotate, like it doesn't ever have to sit with any one person forever. And maybe it is predetermined what the rotation looks like, kind of like a susu.
Mm-hmm.
My mind is asking, how does Mama do it now? I
Hmm.
mean, 3.8 billion years, y'all. She's been here. We're fairly new to the scheme of things, the human. How has she owned it, so to speak? If we were, like, how has she owned it? So to, like, what has been her method? This, like, to create cooperation, because anybody knows if you go to the forest, it's total cooperation and collaboration happening there, honey. Like, hello. So I'm asking, I'm just thinking that, like, in my, like, yeah, like, how does she do that? How do we tend, how's she doing it?
Well, that's the seasons.
Oh,
Cycles,
Yeah, seasons and cycles.
moon energy, currents,
Yeah.
energy.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Seasons and cycles, baby. Seasons and cycles.
Yeah.
To you,
Mhm.
Lisa. I saw your mouth.
My mouth moving. Well, just to build on this, I'm thinking, well, how does Mama Earth do this in a system that is imbalanced? Because right now what we do have is a lot of extraction and we have ownership models. And I'm thinking about how when like the United States government created reservations for the original peoples and peoples there could actually own the land. And that actually created a lot of problems. And so even though ownership is a concept that doesn't really speak to living systems, there's also something about denying that ownership that also denies, a sense of sovereignty and dignity. Like the land back movements are like, there is something about let's reclaim this land and have some kind of mechanism that interfaces that protects it from extractive systems. So I'm just kind of wondering about that. It's like in a well-functioning system, in a well-functioning forest, things work a certain way, but if there's a real imbalance, then how is there some kind of mechanism of protection? Often there needs to be, I think, some boundary of like things giving things a chance to regrow without interference.
That's right.
With the right kind of nutrients. So
Mhm.
I'm thinking about that. I'm just thinking about, it does seem like there's something about protecting from other extractive systems. So if some kind of like ownership isn't claimed, then someone else can swoop in, you know, if there isn't something protected. So I'm wondering about it in that sense, so that there's a way that community really has the power to make decisions, to protect, to not allow resources to be extracted, but to really, yeah, continue to tend them in a certain way. So
You go off and open the door for the teenager, you know.
so those are kind of questions that I'm kind of having right now. But I love your idea, Yvette, also of like councils and
That's a really
Yeah, you talked about the land back
Yeah.
movement.
I think that's a really
And when I think about that, as I work diligently in that movement, it's so intense, because even as our Native brothers and sisters are getting land and wanting to tend her, there's very little incentive to tend her. So they're finding that, okay, so we're getting the land back so we can repair the unbalance, right? But the resource to help repair the imbalance can only come if you're farming her. You know, there's this weird design of when it goes back, can it go all the way back to like, yep, we're gonna start tending it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just put into the chat a link about, y'all may be familiar with that pro-social framework. Eleanor Ostrom, about the commons.
We all have to own it, I
management.
guess.
The commons, yeah, the commons. Common pool management.
Huh. I'm checking it out. I'm saving it to my
I can't hear you.
my Google.
Right on.
Nice. Nice. So is Crystal gonna come get us? I mean, I think we just
She's right
solved
there.
all the problems.
Yeah,
Oh.
I just want to stay getting into it more. I'm so interested in these like this framework and adapting it to, I don't know, to Black autonomy, to different spheres, you know, that are most closely resonant to people's needs. But I feel like, you know, I know Lisa, you're familiar, but this framework is really, it's kind of all encompassing, you know, and it seems like easily adapted. And there are other ways.
In lots of different, environment scenarios.
You know, I'm just starting to get into it. Like that overlaid with the cooperative principles is very strong, I'm finding. Yeah, like ownership versus rights. And I feel like the language, you know, the language we use is so can be so powerful and so easily misconfused.
You have zero ideas and you don't know where to start.
We start overthinking and feeling bad about ourselves.
Gift mode on Etsy. Gift mode on Etsy is here to make it easy to find the perfect item for anyone and any occasion. Get something for the pickleballer, the jazz fan,
What is
the
that?
pasta lover,
That's
the Zen seeker.
Okay.
Need to find the perfect gift?
It better
Don't
not be
panic.
me.
Try gift mode on Etsy now.
It's exactly the testimony we need, though.
maybe we should go on mute and see if it's one of us.
I think it's Crystal.
You think it's Crystal?
Yeah, I think that's our welcome back music.
Oh, we are at time. Yeah, that's what she says. Wow. All right, Lisa.
I've been really trying, baby.
That's great.
You're on mute, Crystal, if you're talking. We can't hear you.
Oh,
Unmute yourself. Mute.
text her and tell her. I mean, put it in the message.
All right.
Okay, hello. Yes, hi everyone. And I'm also, the online folks can all hear us now, so we need to be quiet here. Of course, if you all want to grab some more food, grab some water right here, or go to the bathroom, it's back there, you're more than welcome to. But we're going to transition to our big group conversation. If you want to grab a seat or stand around, you're more than welcome. And we also have friends online here with us. So, how was that? We're about to wrap up. We have 15 minutes and we really want to respect everyone's time and move on to our next step as we gather together. So how was that conversation? Was that fresh? Was that what's one word that would describe that conversation for you? Energizing.
It's like these ginormous topics.
Yeah, what's one word to summarize that?
Ginormous.
Ginormous. Great.
Spectrum.
Spectrum. Do we have somebody online? Give me one word of how that conversation was for you.
Powerful.
Powerful. All right. I should move. Mind bending. What else? Life affirming. Any other one word? Maybe some another person online.
Connective.
Connective.
Collaborative.
Collaborative. Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
We got kind of wonky.
Go wonky. All right. All right.
I'd say we got free too.
We got free.
We got
Love it.
freer.
Yes, freer, freer. It's good to let ourselves free to imagine. So I'm curious to know, so this exercise is particularly interesting in the way that we get to lay the groundwork and move on to the next topic, especially for the people here online. You get to see what the last group was saying. How many people had the chance to read what the last generation was reading? I know it's not a lot of time, so no worries. How many had a chance to make sure you wrote down some things for the future generation to understand where you came from? Great. So these are, when we're talking about intergenerational work, it's a lot of also noticing who are the people taking the time, listening, noticing from the past, Sankofa, and also leaving the trail for the future so we can continue moving things forward. And I would also like to suggest, of course, we have folks like myself who talk a lot, take up a lot of space. Also, notice who are doing these things and make space for them. So I would like to, because nobody knows everything, together we know a whole lot. This is just like a one brief example for us to move and learn together. I would like to invite maybe one or two people who did the listening from the ancestor, from the last generation, from the last group, and also leaving a trail for the future to say a few words about what you notice. Yes, Colin.
I appreciate the
Would you be
wisdom.
able to come here so
Sure.
our friends online can hear you too?
Hey friends.
Hey, Colin.
Where should I stand? Okay.
Stand if
Yeah?
you're comfortable.
I'm
with this.
comfortable.
Great.
I appreciate the wisdom that folks who came before our group left for us to build upon. You know, in our last conversation, I feel like we were like, yeah, +1, tax the rich, yeah. Seize the means of production, hell yeah. Okay, what do we want to talk about? And then from that place, we had so much generativity and so much creativity because like, okay, we have a baseline understanding of like, yeah, of course we want to do these things. What did that look like tangibly, specifically? So we could leave that to the next generation of folks. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Colin. You have one more person? who listened a lot and didn't share a whole lot, especially. Including those online, perhaps? Those who are listening, who could share a few things about what you noticed? Yes, Tanishka.
I feel like something that I noticed. I feel like something that I noticed is scale was a really important consideration when thinking about like what scale feels like a scale we can trust. Felt like the premise to a lot of who owns it and who holds it. And I think answering that question first felt like something we had to emotionally entangle before we get technical and operational stuff.
Thank you. And so to wrap up this exercise, of course, there's no way we could figure everything out in 15 minutes. And notice the prompt here says our energy system in my ideal world. I did not write down our ideal world because we only have 15 minutes. It's a lot to even get to know ourselves before we can figure out how to work with other people. It's the most important thing is we need to know how to be honest with ourselves first before we know we can communicate, just like how we have to learn how to love ourselves so we can love others. So it's a really critical thing for me to realize, as I talk a lot about shaping our energy future, but I don't even know what I think my energy future should look like, let alone try to figure out how to decide this democratically with my people. So today, Tanishka, who was just speaking, I offered a exercise opportunity to speak with Tanishka for 2 hours, a little bit. Would you like to say a few words, just an overview as an exercise to think about that?
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to answer these questions. I'll give a little background.
Yeah, just say more about who you are, your People Power members, and what is going on?
Yeah, so I joined People Power in 2021, coming out of I had graduated into COVID, was in this world building opportunity, and was sitting with some folks here and thinking through how we divest from harmful structures, financially, and mainly thinking through all of that stuff, and came to the cooperative primarily because of the commons model, and realized what a big and nascent energy democracy is, and how centralized we are in our vision. So at the moment, I am an urban planning student, and I had the opportunity to do a year-long project, and I thought who better to work with than People Power. And so in service of that, I kind of have been picking Crystal's brain for about a year and building on the work that the cooperative has been doing, also in a moment of iterative struggle and restructuring, and figuring out what are the major pain points in the movement, and have just come to the fact that with a lot of research, the vision is very decentralized, but working through the entanglements of what that looks like for us individually is a really helpful starting point in at least identifying the areas in which we are struggling to see eye to eye, and using those as generative starting points for beginning to build this out, because we really are doing from the ground up. So I hope to do conversations about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, that workshop these ideas a little bit more in detail, and ground them in everyone's individual background and what brought them to the cooperative, and wanting to reconsider energy to begin with. And I have some sample questions here that I can pass around, and some sign up sheets. And in the interest of full disclosure, this is part of a capstone project, which it really isn't the important part of this. But hopefully these are conversations that I could record and collect data with into a report that will eventually be shared with the cooperative and shared with you all. Yeah, and hopefully create a resource that is helpful to members that are joining. So yeah, I'm gonna pass those around. They'll be floating around. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So it's really, I mean, Tanisha, guys can tell, is a very humble person. I would just say that it's a really exciting service that Tanisha is offering. So much of the time putting into really allowing people like me. I'm for sure going to participate in it. I'm going to participate in it and really understand, how do I actually think the future of energy system really should look like, even if I don't know a whole lot. What do I even want? And to have the conversation with Tanisha, who's going to have conversation with anyone who's interested, and that will then collect into a full, bigger picture of what we all collectively think. Because look, we just spent 15 minutes on one question each. And as there's some sheets passed around, it's a lot of questions deeper to really help us pull out and inspire ourselves an imagination of like, whoa, what does that really look like? So I'm curious to know, is anyone interested in hopping on this call with Tanisha for an hour and a half? I mean, it can do 10 minutes if you want. If you really think you can answer this in 10 minutes, there's nobody saying like you can't leave, but really it's a generosity from Tanisha to really offer 90 minutes to 2 hours. I'm definitely raising my hand here. And what I'll do is just make the sign up process easy. I'll take a photo of everyone signing up here, and then I'll give the contact information to Tanisha. And folks who are online, if you're interested, if you could raise your hands too, we could make sure I document it and make the follow-up process as easy as possible. I mean, do we have folks online raising hands? I don't see any. Okay, great. So we'll follow up with conversation, but if folks present here are interested in having this discussion, please talk to Tanisha.
There's a sign-up sheet
Right there.
for follow-up, and then there's a QR code.
Great, and looking forward to seeing what those people who are engaging this conversation have collectively come up with, which then for the rest of us can move forward and build onto it, just like what we did together in just building onto each other's idea, focusing on listening so we can continue dreaming forward. Great, thank you all. Of course, this will come in a follow-up email as well for those who are not even present and watching the recording here with us. So the next thing we're gonna advance into is the visionary project that Power Solar Cooperative is going to be working on using my capacity. So for 2024, I'll be spending most of my time working on this really exciting new project that is actually led by another Power member here. Miles, if you could come up and say a few words so folks can understand this project, which in some way is like a vision of these collective answer to this collective question we just engaged in.
Hi guys, I think that some of you know me in the past and some of you just met me. My name's Miles, and I spend most of my time for the past 8 years or so working in one aspect of the clean energy space, which a lot of people don't talk about, and that's the area of heat. I think probably when most of you think about renewable energy, correct me if I'm wrong, you tend to think about solar panels, PVs, electricity as the primary means for delivering energy to our systems to be utilized. But I think it's important to recognize that over half the energy that we use in the world comes in the form of heat. And that is a component that has to be addressed if we're going to have a chance of averting some of the calamities that are coming upon us very quickly. But at this point in time in the US, the primary mindset is around addressing the use of electricity. A lot of the clean energy economy, a lot of clean energy initiatives are about developing technologies and systems to address that need, which is interesting because it presents an opportunity of sorts. Our goal has always been to become a solution that can provide heat at a cost that is less than natural gas. That's the only way you can succeed, because natural gas is the enemy in that respect because of its low cost. We've made a lot of progress in that respect, but my challenge has always been, how can I bring these kinds of benefits, not just to commercial industries that we run, like laundries and industry, but which is important thing to address, but in my heart of hearts, I've wanted to try to address the needs of communities. And a few transitions occurred, conversations with Crystal, and I think what manifested over time is something that we're calling the OakTREE initiative, which stands for Oakland Thermal Renewable Energy Electrification Initiative. And in short, it's like a microgrid, but not for electricity, for cooling and heating. Imagine a block-sized neighborhood that's been laced with a network of pipes that transmit hot water and cold water to buildings. The standard model these days for deploying renewable energy infrastructure is to get every home to buy a heat pump or an induction oven or to insulate their homes. And as I think has been, or to get a PV array, electric or battery. And I think has been intimated in this room up to this point. Well, if you've got $70,000 to throw out there, then you're in good shape. But that leaves a lot of us in the lurch if we want to actually participate in the transition. The idea around OakTREE is to flip the narrative in the sense that it's not essential that everybody have access to their own private heat pump or their own private battery array. The goal is to think about ways that you can consolidate these resources, right? So instead of deploying 40 heat pumps to each home in a 40-unit block, deploy 5 or 10 at a fraction of the cost, and then distribute those resources using a very inexpensive and easy to deploy network that contains water, which is another aspect of this approach. This is brought up as well. We're not trying to deliver a high-tech solution that requires high-tech skills. We're trying to deliver a solution that people who lack a lot of education skills can be easily brought to speed on and very quickly in a non-barrier way. That was the term that came earlier. We want to create skills programs that don't have barriers. Well, now you've got an opportunity to lower the barriers for people to contribute to creating their energy infrastructure using low-tech, but still incredibly effective techniques for bringing energy, right? You're storing heat in the form of hot water tanks, which water is non-toxic. So who cares about putting a big tank of water in your backyard versus, lithium-ion batteries, which we have some issues, right? There's few issues with the resources involved. From the standpoint of bringing value, as I indicated, right? It says right there, at least 60% of your energy needs come in the form of heat. So you're already advancing the ball in that respect. Another aspect of this is the kinds of resources that you connect. We're not just talking about solar thermal panels for collecting heat or heat pumps or hot water tanks, but there's this concept known as a closed cycle greenhouse, right? I mean, greenhouses are notorious for the fact that in the summertime, you have to ventilate them so they don't overheat. You're throwing away lots of heat there. Well, you can take this greenhouse and you can connect it to the network, basically. And if you can do that, you can close the thing and have it operate year-round, increasing its yield. So now you've got a holistic system that's not only delivering low-cost heating and cooling resources, using skills that can be sourced from the community, but also you're providing produce in the form of organic greens that can now be distributed. So there's opportunities for creating interesting new economies and ecosystems for trade or incentivizing. And one of the other aspects of this is one of the challenges of creating microgrids is that the utility is all of your ass, right? You have to effectively connect to the grid, basically. And if you don't, well, you're in trouble. Well, there's almost no regulations around thermal distribution, right? As long as you don't cross any public right-of-ways, you can deploy to our expanding network without having anybody fuck with you in terms of charging you or trying to extract a tariff at that exchange. So now you have an opportunity to create a self-contained exchange energy network where the Joneses who have a solar thermal array and the Robinsons who have a tank of water can now actually exchange energy in an economic or some other exchange fashion that they can dictate and that is not dictated to them by some monopolistic utility. Now, I'm not absolutely certain about that, but the goal here is to think about an alternative energy concept, right? I mentioned that I was trying not to be agnostic, but sometimes you got to sit down and consider some solutions. And I think what I like about this is that it is holistic. We're not trying to just satisfy a particular need. We're trying to think about the community as organization and organism that requires a variety of solutions, a variety of inputs, a variety of outputs, And I think that this is a potential platform to provide that. No, by the way, because there's nobody right now working in the thermal energy space, and there's like 600,000 plus in the PV space. Well, this place is wide open. And from that standpoint, if you ever seriously considering about trying to create a diverse workforce, you're not going to do it by integrating existing system. That's not going to happen. But if you build from scratch, right, if you can define the parameters early on, you can sort of establish a DNA for diversity in that workforce as you start. So that's just sort of one of that's a few of the aspects that we're trying to put across here. There's actual funding behind this. I've raised in excess of $2 million to support this. We just got a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to start looking at the greenhouse aspects. We have a collaboration with Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. So it's an exciting idea. People are getting interested. And I think that in many respects, it matches the mission of people power, which is how do we put energy infrastructure in the hands, in a comprehensive, multiplicity of ways in the hands of the people that need it and can own it and can operate it and can build it, design it, and maintain it. Again, some of the issues we're very much talking about right now. I think it's kind of timely that, did you arrange that? That these questions that we're talking about sort of align with this. Anyway, that's just a brief introduction. I'm happy to answer more questions. It's early days, but think about it. And if nothing else, use it as a means to sort of think about how you deliver energy and infrastructure from a different perspective, as opposed to one that's primarily focused on electricity. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Miles. So,
Miles?
wait, Miles, let's not go so far because Miles,
Miles
you probably need to be answering questions sometime soon, so I don't want you to be too far away. All right, so we obviously are a little past 8 o'clock. To respect everyone's time, what I'll do is we'll do a little summary of today and then we'll go into questions. So folks who need to leave, hop off the call, you can feel free to do so. But then the rest we'll just have Q&A and we can hang out, mingle as well. Colin.
Feel free to disregard my suggestion.
Sure.
But I would love to take a group picture with everyone.
Yes,
as a form
that's
of
right.
documenting before anybody leaves through that door.
That's a good suggestion. Yes, thank you. Really appreciate. Yes, that's right. So to summarize today's gathering, what we have shared was that we are really just gathering together to remind each other that we are all together to create an inclusive and just transition to renewable energy by enabling everyone to own and shape our energy future. And this is a thing that we say a lot. And today we spent a lot of time thinking about what that really means to ourselves. And we're not just really making that as a way for you to just do your homework alone, but really be in the room with the people who share the same goal as you to begin having this conversation. So before we get into shaping our energy future, we brought in, of course, the project group that we have been leading with many members, ebb and flow, in and out over the past year since 2020. We heard about how it got started, we heard about what's been going on. And so where we are in the terms of call to action is to help grow the Battery Collective. So invite people to use the battery. If you're interested in making sure people know about the battery, please tell people about it. We got magnets. We got magnets. We would love for you to host tables, to join us, support us for our engagement with the Pop-Up Village in San Francisco in March. And also, if you're not local, we have emergency battery toolkit for you. So that was a number one summary. Number two summary is reimagining energy future for our community. So it's a little exercise that Tanishka has very graciously offered for all of us. So please follow up with Tanishka either by clicking on the link that I'll be sending out or talk to Tanishka right now to really get into this exciting exercise that I for sure will be signing up to do. And the last but not least, I did not mention is governance. So People Power Solar Cooperative is a cooperative. We have board members that are elected by our members, and we have board election coming up. Just a heads up, wanted you to think about if you're interested in running for People Power Board, People Power Owls. Right now, this year, we have up for election is the governance owl, why am I doing this? I have the really cute stuff somewhere. Oh, no, here. I put everything around me. I think that would be easy to show. It's so many, I couldn't keep up with everything. So we got the governance owl, which is currently held by Brandy.
Hey.
We have Anchor Owl, who is representing the Anchor members who are stewarding projects or anchoring our cooperative, is currently held by Keita Price. And then we have Financial Owls, which we currently don't have anyone holding. So we have election coming up. We would love for you to help make sure we have full owls, of course. Election is always good instead of just having the old people running and keep repeating. So we'll love for engagement and participation so we can practice co-governance of our future by engaging with the cooperative. So these are 3 things that we'll be up to. And with that, I wonder if we want to if we have any burning questions before we go into transition into conversation, into group pictures, and then we can just hang out and have conversations. Any burning questions? Yes, I said.
I have a lot of questions for you.
Okay, so there's, I will repeat your question for the people online, so we could just give some space.
Yeah, I wanted to hear more about like, there was the energy aspect of it, and then where did you, like, are there communities that you are thinking about working with?
Sorry, I was talking.
Sorry. Like, is there, are you all thinking about maybe starting at a property with EV crack? Like, what's the, like, where's the, like, yeah, like, what would we do with this information?
Sure. So the question is, where is this project going to be built in? Is there an idea of the location? So yes, the answer is yes. So first, I think it's important to recognize this is not a solution to promote any technology, as Miles had mentioned from the very beginning. This is a lot of appropriate technology built together on a system that is so low tech and so low cost that people can build it, maintain it, and own it ourselves. That's the idea. But we have not built it yet. So we don't know how much it actually costs to build it. So the number one most important thing that we need to do right now is to figure out the technical and economic viability of this entire project. And yes, we have a pilot site selected. We are working in a lot of deep conversation with this eco-industrial artisan village called O2 Artisan Artifact. O2AA.
Yeah, those folks. Yeah.
O2 Artisan Aggregate, sorry.
O2AA, O2AA.
That's right. Oakland.
Who was that, Brandy?
That was Yvette.
Yvette.
Yeah, I should just bring them back. Yeah, so we have this working with them. So whenever we get, as soon as we get the funding that's needed from the government, from philanthropy, we will build this to test out the techno-economic viability right on the O2AA site. And why is O2AA so exciting? It is a place that you have folks who are building, who are making soba noodle, who are growing food with greenhouses, who are sawmill, making big furnitures, we have breweries, we have all sorts of things that's happening on that 2.2 acre site, and people live in there. And so this is an entire ecosystem that we can start building out to kind of emulate what it could look like in the backyard. I mean, the idea is we'll build it, the viability, and then we can create templates that neighborhoods can start building it with the people behind them.
Ashe. Can I say one little thing? It's not necessarily a burning question. I just want to give thanks for the time. This is Brandy talking. I want to acknowledge our usage of energy. I want to make sure we are mindful not to just continue to create things like we can't create a topical solution for an infection of humans overusing and creating more stuff. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking of a regenerative, like, okay, we replace this to do this so we can keep just wasting shit and flicking on lights and having more and 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 more. It's not going to be. So I just want to acknowledge that. And I know we're all here there, but I just want to say that that needs to be in the center, because we're just then doing the same thing, not thinking about how much do we really need? Why do we have so much? What are the deeper ways of how we're eating food? Why do we need refrigerators if we got 10,000 community gardens? What are the deeper pieces to this so that we're not just creating some more stuff? Because we won't, when I think about my next generations, if we continue on the usage and in this way, we can keep on creating stuff that ain't gonna help. We've got to think of the deeper how we living. How many more people got 7-bedroom homes of 2 people? Like, what are the so I just want to open, make sure that we are thinking of that, so we're not just tit for tatting with an industry.
Ashe. Thank you, Brandy. That's definitely very important to name. And I think a lot of us, including myself, just assume that it's the case. And it's so important to name that. And with that, I think it's a really good transition. It was mentioned earlier that we have gifts for People Power members and supporters. And so we have these solar power gift bags. They will be mailed to those who are not here in person, but these gift bags really talk about what solar power really is. As Brandy was saying, we really need to think about what energy is. Energy is not just this electricity or heat or whatever that's clean that we're getting from someone, but really, what is energy? So right here in this bag, I've never even looked at it inside yet, honestly. I have no idea what truly is inside, what it looks like. But this is a gift box talking about energy, talking about solar energy in a way that help us remember our relationship with energy the way our ancestors did. I could pull out some things just so y'all can see. We have beeswax candle.
Ooh.
So thinking about what solar energy is, and there's notes that we have been drafting to really help you understand why that's solar energy. We also have solar moon tea for folks. Okay. And I'm seeing things like seeds. Talk about solar power. Hey. The real solar power is the seeds. So just some examples for you to really think about and have you take home to really feel what solar power really means for our lives, so we can remember our relationship with energy, so we can start really grounding into the words that Brandy was just sharing about how we're really thinking about energy in a way, not just something that we can consume, but really thinking about how are we really in relationship with each other and with the living and the non-living things all around in our nature. So with that, I'm gonna start passing it out. I think almost everyone is members here, so I'll just start passing it out. And yes, Colin.
Where did these beautiful gifts come from?
Yes, the beautiful gifts came from Selena. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. It's a group.
And for those who are online, they will be mailed to you. If you have not filled out the form, please drop in chat.
It's called Moonrise Collective, and they're a collective of farmers, of artists, of land stewards, of beekeepers who make these boxes. And so when there was an opportunity for us to make gifts for the members, I immediately thought of Moonrise Collective. I'm a big fan of them. They're also some of my closest friends, so I'm a little biased, but I think you all are gonna like it. And if you really love the gifts, you can sign up for their subscription services. They're here in Oakland, and they've got a lot of love for this land, like we all do. So yeah, Moonrise Collective. Yeah, and you'll find more information about them in the notes that's in there, and you'll also get to read a little bit more about where all of these different things came from.
Thank you, Selena. Thank you.